Your TOEFL speaking section has 4 questions, and in this video we're going to cover question 4 in a way to raise your score. First thing we're going to do is we're going to cover the basics of the question, then we're going to dig into detail on the lecture you're going to hear that you're going to have to explain so you know how to take notes and what's important. Then we're going to go to the all-important template. How do you deliver your answer? But we're going to train it in a way I think you've never seen before. It's worked for thousands of students to help them improve, and I'm really eager to show it to you. I think you're going to like it. And then after that, if you enjoyed the video, I'm going to explain how we can work together so you can get more help to defeat your TOEFL speaking. TOEFL speaking question 4 begins with a lecture for you to listen to from a professor. It'll be 2 minutes explaining a topic. When it's finished, you'll get a question. Please explain what you understood from the professor. So really just repeating what you heard clearly. You're going to get 20 seconds to prepare. So review your notes, organize your thoughts, and calm and center yourself. Then you're going to hear a beep, and it's going to transition to giving you 60 seconds to answer. So that 2-minute lecture, you have to pick the key points to explain so that you can begin and end your explanation within 60 seconds. My name is Joseph, and I've been helping students defeat their TOEFL since 2008. This is a score report back in 2008. Where you say I scored a perfect 30 on every section when the exam was quite different, all the way to now where I've been taking the TOEFL every year, scoring perfects on every section. So I do this so that you can feel confident that what you're learning here works. It is expert advice, not only from my success on the TOEFL, but from helping tens of thousands of other students. The lecture is divided into 5 fundamental parts that are important for you to know. If you understand the structure of the lecture, you're going to be able to comprehend better as you get a new topic you're unfamiliar with, take notes better because you know what you're listening for. It begins by introducing you to a topic. So let's make it really simple. Let's say the topic is about cars. So she might say cars are vehicles that people use to move themselves or objects. And then that topic is going to be divided into 2 subtopics, 2 categories of cars. So the professor might say, today we're going to talk about 2 common cars, the sedan and the pickup truck. So this is where you might get some new words. And students often ask, what happens if I don't know that word or I don't write it down? It will give an influence to your score because, of course, these are words that are expected for you to be able to catch. Even if you don't know them, you should be able to sound them out and explain them for a top speaking score. However, don't stress because you can still get up to a 30 if everything else is strong, but you maybe miss a keyword or miss an idea. The second thing is remember how after the lecture you get a question? Using the examples provided by the professor, please explain the topic he was or she was discussing. So that question sometimes, not all the time, is actually going to have those keywords. So it might say something like, using the examples of sedan and pickup truck, please explain cars as it was explained by the professor. So that question is something to take advantage of because it can help you with the words that you didn't get. Then the professor is going to explain the first subtopic, give an example to illustrate, and then the second. So sedan. A sedan is generally a 4-door car that is used by families to move from place to place. For instance, when I was growing up, my parents had a Ford sedan, which is a car that we used because we had a family of 4 to drive from our home to the supermarket and to other places. So you notice how the example that I gave wasn't overly complicated. It was really just an example of the sedan according to how I described it. Now, if you know this, you can listen for it. So the second kind is a pickup truck. Pickup trucks often have what's called a bed that allows you to put large things on it so you can transfer it from place to place. For instance, pickup trucks are very common in the countryside in the United States because their bed, that flat place where you can put wood, where you can put furniture, is often necessary to move from place to place. Topic description, subtopic description example, subtopic description example. So the first step is to recognize that we're actually going to explain in 60 seconds in the same pattern that we heard the lecture over about 2 minutes. I gave a simple car example, but on the TOEFL you're going to get something more related to plant or animal biology, behavior, art, business, and essentially what you want to do is simply repeat the core ideas. So what you want to understand is that between 60 to 47 seconds, you want to explain the topic and its description. Cars, what it was about. Between 47 seconds and 25 seconds, so that's 22 seconds total, you want to explain the subtopic, its description, and the example that illustrates it. The example is more important. One more time. The example is more important. You really should have just one sentence about the subtopic and its description, and then everything else from the example, that's what shows your understanding. Then you do the same thing for the second, where you go from 25 seconds to 3 seconds, explaining the second subtopic, description, example, focusing on the example, and then from 3 to 0, a conclusion. That's how the professor describes cars. Now, the template, you have many of them. Use whatever you like. But here's the important part to raise your score. When you're scoring below an 18, we know the total score is 30, that's perfect. Below an 18, it often means that your structure and your major points are missing. So any template is going to level up your score between an 18 to a 22 because it's forcing you to structure your response. And as you become more structured, hitting each of these points, as you become better with time management, you're going to lock into the 20 plus, which I know there are many of you who want. Now, when you go above 22 to 30, templates no longer, in my 15-year experience, matter. And I'm going to say they matter to get 18 to 22. You have to keep them. But now refining them and changing them no longer help. Instead, what helps is you can say more detailed kind of patterns of speech that start to express clarity and connection better. So what does this all mean? It's the idea that when you practice, if you want to improve your TOEFL Speaking Question 4, a game-changing exercise that I want you to do today, and I know you will improve, is you have to let yourself naturally understand how to explain this and create connection by making up simple examples for yourself. So before you jump into the challenge of the TOEFL speaking, you just need maybe 1 or 2 hours to play with the structure. What I did with cars, you're going to do with what you look around you. So for example, let me make something up with pianos. There's a little piano off the screen that you can't see. And this is what you need to practice doing. Pianos are instruments that you use to play music. And there are essentially 2 kinds. The first kind is an electronic piano. It's digital and requires electricity. For instance, in my home, when I'm a little bit tired and I want to pick me up, I play my electronic piano. All I have to do is plug it into the wall and I can play and make the sounds to make my music. The second kind of piano is a standing piano. This actually uses strings. So when you hit a key, hitting the string makes the sound. For instance, I remember when I was in university, I took a piano class and we had a standing piano where it didn't need any electricity. Every time I hit the key, it would hit a string and it would make the sound for the music. That's how the professor discusses pianos. Now, what I just did is going to take you 1 to 2 hours to do by yourself. You're going to have trial and error. You're going to look around, you're going to see your desk, and you're going to be like, what do I do? That means you don't have a natural sense of categorization, which is fundamental to success on the TOEFL speaking and the TOEFL entirely. So you don't naturally think and you look at your desk and you say, well, there can be heavy desks and light desks. Like you can see qualities of it. There can be wood desks and plastic desks, or there can be desks with drawers and without drawers. Do you see how I just did that? That is a skill that illustrates my brain's ability to naturally and instantly categorize and divide information. Many students, when you go from 22 to 24, 26, 30, they don't know how to improve. They keep changing templates. Your pronunciation matters. Your grammar matters. Everything has to be leveled up though when you want to hit 24, 26, 28. And the best way to level everything up is to help your brain understand information in more complex patterns. So, not super complex, but just dividing by 2. Now you have another pattern. You have to take that thing that you just divided. So for example, from a desk made of wood to, we'll say, a desk made of plastic, right? Bravo, you leveled up, you divided into two. Now you have to take that one thing and put it into two parts. So that plastic desk, you must now practice giving a general sentence of description and then an example that keeps in your short-term memory that description and repeats it in an example. Do you see how this is somewhat complex? Think about it. You're an intelligent student. Many of you, if you've never taken the TOEFL before, haven't learned what several students who have taken the TOEFL many times learned, that they don't give top scores for nothing. It is a challenging exam that you must work hard to improve because it's complex. My plastic desk, how am I going to describe it? Just one quality. I don't need two or three. So I can say plastic desks are cheap. And then I can say wood desks are expensive. And then my example is, for instance, I remember when I was in college and I wasn't really working a job, I just had student loans. I bought a plastic desk because it was only $50 to $100 and I could afford that. So you see how that example is a specific illustration of the description. Let's go to the wood desk, but let's change it. Instead of comparing it from cheap to expensive, I'm going to switch it to talk about the weight. Maybe that's what comes up for me naturally. I say plastic desks are light and wood desks are heavy. So now I need an example that illustrates that. So I can say, for instance, I remember when I was moving a few years ago, I had this beautiful wood desk that I wanted to move. And when I tried to pick it up with my partner, it was too heavy. So we called some friends to help us and it took 4 people to lift it because it was so heavy compared to every other piece of furniture. So you see, it's an example that illustrates weight. This is the game changer because I want you to know when you are taking the TOEFL, your brain is at full power. You might be a bit stressed. You've just finished the reading and listening section. You are processing new information. If you don't have this natural pattern of topic description, subtopic description example inside your own mind, your brain is going to be working hard to make that connection. That means your brain, instead of concentrating on looking at the timer for time management, breathing to keep yourself calm, instead of processing the complex information, details, words, pronunciation, you're also trying to figure out this very complex thing. After this video, set a timer for 1 hour and simply try to come up with these question number 4s. And when you struggle, review this video. Because the beauty of learning is trial and error doesn't mean you need to learn new information. It just means you need to review the recipe. Now, one more time, you might be thinking, well, Joe, this sounds, because my name is Joe, right? This sounds really tough. It's because the TOEFL is tough. So now you understand the template. The professor discusses. That's how you can begin it, nice and simple. He or she explains that. So you get the topic and the description, right? Dividing it into 2. First, the first subtopic, it's description. So first, which, he, she explains that. Then the example. He provides an example of to illustrate this. Or you can even just jump straight into the example. She explains that. Then second, the second subtopic, it's description. For example, for me, second, double-paned windows, which, right? So second, then you have the subtopic, the adjective clause which. Very simple pattern. So second, double-paned windows, which are often used as insulation to keep out extreme weather. Then you have the transition to the example. He provides an example of, she explains. So just to remind you of that, the second kind is double-paned windows, which are insulators that keep out extreme weather. The professor explains that when he was living in New York, right? You see that transition. And then the conclusion. That's how the professor discusses the topic. So if you review this video, and if you allow yourself to, without a timer, trust this process, your brain is going to start to become highly skilled at the ability to take a topic, break it down into subtopics, understand a description and a connecting example. Now, once you have that, that's about 1 to 2 hours, right? You have that pattern, feel proud of yourself because it's not easy. Your next step is to practice an example TOEFL speaking question 4 and then explain it comfortably, no timer, so that you can really feel yourself taking what you practiced and being able to do it for the TOEFL. Then once you feel like, hey, I can do this for information like the TOEFL, then you introduce the timer. And the transition is all you're doing is getting to the point a little bit faster. So when I talked about the piano, I can get to the point by giving 1 sentence for each part. The professor talks about pianos. He describes 2 kinds. The first is an electronic piano, which needs electricity. He provides an example of a piano he plays by plugging into a wall to make sound. The second kind of piano is a standing piano, which makes sounds by hitting a string. The professor gives an example of playing a standing piano in college, where the piano hit a string to make sound and not electricity. That's how pianos are discussed. So that power of understanding that flow of information is the first step to then, with a timer, be able to get to the point. Make sure that as you do this, you also record yourself and listen to yourself. Because if you listen to yourself naturally with an open ear, you're going to find things that you're going to be able to say, I wasn't so clear there. So you try again. You can be your own coach. And if you want help with those TOEFL speaking examples, right, we have plenty on our site. If you need help with other sections, other questions on the TOEFL, know that we're here to support you 100%. Let me give you a little example. I want to introduce you to Ahmed, an amazing student who started with an overall TOEFL score of 64, took our courses, our classes, worked with me, and was guided to 101 over the journey of multiple years, because improving 37 points is amazing, possible, and takes a lot of work. Ahmed shows that no matter where you are, with this kind of disciplined, focused training where I guide you through practice step by step to build the skills necessary so that when you take the TOEFL, you can perform well, we can reach your dream score. So I invite you to the site, NoteFull.com. You see it on the screen. Browse, we have free resources, and trust that you're going to get the help that you need. Your success is coming. We will defeat your TOEFL.